So next we have Adam. You see, I've got to be careful now, right? Because you spoke about your surname earlier. Adam Romain. He's the CTO and co-founder of Moment. So we've had Aaron, the CEO, join us before as well at past events. So it's really lovely to come full circle and also hear different perspectives. So really fantastic to have you here, Adam, and give us your unique insights. So for those of you who don't know, Moment is a startup that specializes in putting real assets on the blockchain. They have fantastic LinkedIn and YouTube content if you haven't seen, so definitely recommend that. But really it's a marketplace that enables the trade of things like solar energy, heritage assets, art, among others, and they're growing all the time. And this is done through advanced and secure blockchain technology. In March 2022, they hosted Africa's largest NFT auction, where they sold Nelson Mandela's original arrest warrant for $130,000. That's really amazing. And I know that was a really successful event, so congrats to you guys on that. Adam has a track record of founding startups, including Moment, of course. Other ones include Project, again, CUDA, yeah, you see, you gotta just double check these things. Project CUDA and Boza, is that right? Yeah. And Lockdown Boza, a product that scaled to 1.5 million users in just 72 hours, is that right? Yeah, it was zero marketing, which is unbelievable. So if only all ventures scaled so easily. So over to you.
Hello. How's it, everyone? Okay, so when prepping for this talk, I had to ask one fundamental question, and that why are we all here? And the answer came to that roughly 90% of startups fail. And it's a really, really hard fact. But from all my learnings, I'm really hoping that I can take away those scars from many other people and share some useful tips over the 6 years of building startups. So, and I don't want you to land up like this guy, just dosing features and hoping things are going to work, right? So one of the most important concepts that I think people misunderstand is the product-market hypothesis. And essentially what this is just your idea. And where people go wrong is they just want to have some cool idea that sounds cool with no actual fundamental basis. So it's like, I want to do the Tinder for X or the Uber for Y, but they don't really understand what problem they're solving. And I would like to break it down into two components. Number one is the market, and you need a large market, otherwise you're not a startup. And the second portion is an underserved need. And I think people don't really actually understand this. A lot of the times, from lack of research, people start to build a product that other people are solving incredibly well and don't realize that they can't compete. And at the same time, that's why they recommend that you find a niche market to go into. But secondly, it highlights who your target customer really is. And without that, there's no ways you can get to the next part, which is building the right product for that market. If you don't understand who you're building this product for, how the hell are you going to build the right thing? And the second concept is product market fit. I think this is the holy grail for every startup. Everyone wants to get to this point, and it's extremely challenging. And the favorite definition I could find was from Y Combinator. And they say, or they phrase it as a question: is your growth almost killing you, and is it profitable? And I want to share an example of a startup and why this definition means a lot. So when we did Lockdown Boza and it got to 1.5 million users in 3 days, we knew we hit some form of product market fit because we couldn't handle the growth at all. It was extremely challenging, which meant that we had a large market, 1.5 million users, and at the same time, we solved the problem, and that meant so many people came to us that we weren't equipped to solve the problem. But then the second part came in that we weren't profitable, and we didn't actually figure out a way to make that venture profitable per customer or just make enough money. So I think people start to forget the second part and how important it is and why financial modeling is so important. And then now we actually get to, how do we get to this holy grail of product market fit? And you should not go diving into code and do all the fun things and say I'm a startup founder. That doesn't actually work. And the sad reality is I'm going to give you the same advice that everyone gives you. You just got to do research and speak to those target customers. And again, with the product market hypothesis, if you get that part wrong, you're not going to know who your customers are. You're going to start incredibly wrong, go in the wrong direction, and just waste a lot of time, which I've done. Don't do it. It's not nice. So I have two pieces of advice when speaking to customers. Number one, when you actually speak to your future customers, you should be the one that's not talking most of the time. You need to be asking a lot of questions. One of the biggest mistakes I made was telling them the solution I'm going to build for you is this, And then they sit there politely saying, yes, that's going to work. Ooh, that's nice. But the reality is you actually need to figure out how are they currently solving their problem and actually ask them just about their day and how they go about other things around the problem that they're facing. And the second one, which was also mentioned earlier, is build design prototypes. These things are amazing. I've built a full-blown product with Aaron on Figma in one day, shown it to a customer, and got a second round of feedback. And what you do is essentially you get that first round of feedback without the design prototype. You change your hypothesis, you create the prototype, and there you get immediate second answers. And then finally, you got to head over to actually building the MVP. And this is a challenging part, but you need to build it damn fast, really, really fast. And there's two reasons why. Okay, number one, your goal is to get customer feedback. You cannot build the perfect product day one. It's just not going to happen, and you need to realize that. And number two, your hypothesis has such a good chance of being wrong, you should probably find out answers earlier rather than later, right? And there's one trick to kind of figure out if you're building fast enough or getting there fast enough, and that's, are you embarrassed of your MVP? And I think for the first two ventures, I was not embarrassed, and it took me 8 months and then 4 months for the second one. But actually, funny enough, for the latest two, it took 4 days, and then 3 days later, we had 1.5 million users. And the second one with Moment, we launched our MVP within 2 weeks, sold $30,000 of NFTs, and then raised $350,000 from confidence from investors that we could actually build a product, and we were doing things the right way. And then now you hit the hardest part, and that's the iteration cycle. This is can last you 5 years, Twitch 6, and I think what you need to be very careful about is not looking at vanity metrics. Just because you raise capital, it doesn't matter. Just because you have customers, it doesn't matter. The metrics you need to track generally are around revenue or retention, and even then, sometimes you need to be a bit careful about those can even land up being vanity metrics for your startup. So think very carefully about your North Star metric, and that's the other piece of advice. You generally don't want to look at thousands of metrics. You can't go track thousands of metrics every day, right? You should be tracking one metric that really you believe aids to your success, right? And then you use all the other metrics around that metric to go, oh, that's why we're not making this metric work, okay? So don't overcomplicate it, simplify everything. Oh, and then I just want to say one last thing. This part can last extremely long, so you need to keep your burn really low, keep your team really, really small, because having a large team is extremely, extremely hard to manage, and you don't want to be wasting your time managing a team when actually you need to be building a great product. And what often happens in this iteration cycle is you shouldn't fall prey to the sunk cost fallacy. And that's basically, oh, I've worked on this thing for 6 months. I love it so much and I can't let it go. But the reality is sometimes it's totally okay to get to the point where you're like, my hypothesis is wrong and I need to restart. Not modify the product ever so slightly, but totally restart your product. And a good example is when we had our startup Project Cuda, our first iteration of our product, I think it was 4 to 6 months, we had, I would say one customer that was probably using us because it was a family friend or something. And then we were we just couldn't figure out why we couldn't get customers. And then we were okay, wait, why don't we just scrap the whole thing and just build something new? And within a week after launching that MVP, we had a whole bunch of customers trying to use our product. And it didn't work and then at the end of the day, but it really helped us move in the right direction. So, and then there's a caveat here. You do not want to just go, oh, it's not working, move on to the next thing. You need to give a good marketing effort. You need to put a lot of effort in each part of this business or this hypothesis to see whether it's actually now invalid. A lot of people just give up too soon. And lastly, and this is the tough one, and I think no one wants to hear this, but you need to take full accountability, 100% accountability for having excuses. And I've been there, so I'm not just saying this, it's all you guys and not me. A lot of people have common excuses. I don't have a designer. I know so many founders that have learned Figma by themselves. They're not designers, and they've actually produced amazing designs that have created great MVPs. I'm not a tech co-founder. I can't build my product. Well, find one. That's your challenge as a founder, is to find that tech co-founder, and it can even take a year. I know Mindjoy, recently I saw on LinkedIn, she found a technical co-founder, and it took her a very, very long time. But also there's no-code solutions, and the Delta has pioneered this with Niven, and they've actually built a product that's working right now, live, and that's pretty, pretty incredible. And lastly, I have no funding. And this is the one that I think I used way too often in my career. And speaking about bootstrapping, and this metric kind of sums it up. 67% of Series A funded startups in 2017 were already generating revenue before being funded. Okay, so that means that a lot of startups got to the point where they launched the MVP and started making money without having money. So you need to be like that, you know. And I'm not saying you don't need to raise. I'm saying that your case for raising is so much better when you get to that point, right? That you've actually built a product and you got a bit of money. And lastly, to catch yourself from having these excuses, because every founder will have these excuses, there's nothing to feel ashamed about, is that you need to get mentors that are honest and also have founder friends that just slap you with a dose of honesty. Some of the best conversations I had, I just got whacked in the face and I was like, you're so right. And then 2 weeks later, unblocking myself and then doing much better. So this is a really, really crucial point. And then the last thing I want to end off with is I truly believe this is one of the best times in history to build startups. And it was quite funny. I was chatting to my dad, and when he was building technology quite a long time ago, he had these things called punch cards. And you had to like stack them on each other and then feed it into a machine, and then it would spit out like some number, and it was like some really trivial calculation. And heaven forbid you drop these punch cards and all of a sudden your program disappears. And now you fast forward to today, where we can deploy using the cloud, you know, servers in any country in the world. You can, through social media and influencers, target niche audiences all around the world. You've got no-code solutions that, are, for the first time, I believe, are actually becoming really good and can actually build real products. You're in Africa, where there's a huge funding explosion happening here for the first time, unlike 6 years ago. And also, as a South African founder, I would say our burn rates here are like a quarter of the US burn rates, and you can also get funding from the US at the same valuations. So that puts us at a huge advantage. So I truly believe that if you're in this room and you've come to an event like this, I think you have more than a 10% chance of success, and I wish you guys the best.